Caught my girlfriend entertaining her ex while banning my female friends. Now she bonds with her manager who openly crushes on her. I've been with my girlfriend for 3 years. Our general dynamic is that she's very opinionated and has a very black and white perspective of thinking, especially when it comes to generalizations. Men and women cannot be friends, whereas I'm a lot more laid back, and I try to pride myself on being objective and seeing the gray area. My entire life, I've been able to connect better with women as opposed to men. Most of my closest friends have been women. I've been introduced to many romantic partners, or have met some of my exes by associating with these friends, but I have never dated, pursued or even thought about pursuing any of my actual friends. When I met my girlfriend, I was working in a restaurant, and was very close friends with a few of the servers. We'd go out for drinks/food, hang out alone, and keep in contact outside of work. My girlfriend, being very insecure, absolutely hated this. We would constantly fight about the fact that I had female friends. There was one friend in particular she absolutely could not stand. I'll call her Jess. I cannot even begin to tell you how many god-awful horrible fights there were over Jess. I was constantly accused, by my girlfriend, of being in love with Jess, only being with my girlfriend to bide my time until Jess was single. At one point, I was even accused of being the father to Jess's aborted son. I am not exaggerating when I say that I was constantly harassed and interrogated every single day by my girlfriend about Jess and I's secret relationship. Jess did turn out to be a bad friend, and we stopped talking 2 years ago. Then it was any other friend that my girlfriend didn't like. I still have to listen to my girlfriend rant about Jess and I's secret relationship, by the way. This entire time, I am sent God only knows how many TikToks about how men and women cannot be friends. I am constantly told about men and women she knows in real life cheating and being cheated on with their friends. I am constantly told that if she ever has a guy friend, I should be worried because she's only friends with guys she feels some kind of way about. After a solid year of being constantly harassed by girlfriend about every non-lesbian in my life, we came to a compromise. I will not add any women on Snapchat. I will never hang out alone with another girl. After negotiating from if a girl is there, I shouldn't go, even though she initially agreed that it's okay for me to add friends and colleagues on Facebook and Instagram, as long as I actually know them. She still stalks my friends list and interrogates me about any new woman that may be on there. At this point, I started working in a more male-dominated field, and while I still have to listen to her speculate and accuse me of being in love with whichever random woman I work a shift with, it's usually just a sly comment and only occasionally a full-blown argument. About a year ago, my girlfriend confesses to something sus. The day my grandmother dies, she tells me that she was talking to her ex-situationship. This guy was a real pos, and when he had reached out to her previously, I gave her my blessing to talk to him and get closure, the only catch being they don't meet up, and she saves all the messages between them because she deleted everyone's messages off of her phone. He asked her to meet up with him and suck his dick. I had to argue with her to block him because she doesn't like to block people, and she finally relented. So I was obviously upset, because why was he unblocked? Her excuse was she unblocked everybody and he messaged her. That's weird, but okay, let me see the messages. She deleted them. Now I'm pissed, and emotionally from the fact that my grandmother just died we get into a fight and I demand she blocks him again. She says she did. The next day we go back to my place and I've already moved past it, until I playfully reach out to grab her phone and she rips it out my hand. She gives me about 3 bullshit reasons as to why she did that, then finally tell me it's because he didn't block her yet. At this point I'm furious. I feel betrayed. I feel even more upset because the night before she made another cheating accusation because it was suspicious that I was watching her place a DoorDash order on my phone, and here she is actually doing something sketchy. I ultimately compromise again and get over it. So fast forward to about a few months ago, my girlfriend has settled down quite a bit in regards to the whole cheating thing. I mainly associate with men now. There are women I work with, but we're not close. A seldom few are added into the abyss that I call my Facebook friends list or my Instagram followers, never to be interacted with. I am still accused of collecting women as backups. My girlfriend starts a new job at a hotel. She immediately connects with her manager, a guy I'll call Jeff. Jeff has a girlfriend, but apparently spends his entire shift pining after my girlfriend and shit-talking his girlfriend. He stays late on her shifts to help her. Their friendship progresses from the point of her calling him off the clock to come into work and solve issues at their job to him getting a job at the sister hotel and just going to my girlfriend's job to hang out with her. He calls her when he's bored, but not when he's around his girlfriend, because she doesn't want him talking to my girlfriend. He's openly admitted to her that he has a crush on her. She doesn't see a problem with this at all. What worries me, I have no idea how to proceed. I'm considering breaking up with her. But I feel I might be overreacting. I am worried about being cheated on, because our relationship cannot come back from that. But I am also incredibly upset by the double standard. How can I make her see my point of view that her behavior is hypocritical? Update 1. A few commentators asked me why I stayed with her for so long. The honest truth? I love her. I still love her, and I can ultimately recognize that she was extremely hypocritical, emotionally abusive, and controlling. I never really believed that was the real her because when I met her, she had started the depot shot and that made her bonkers. As the effects of the shot wore off, she started to mellow out. Even though it was still bad, the very, very slow progress gave me hope, and that's what I held on to. It's very easy to look at my original post and think only of bad things because that's the only thing I shared. But we had so many great moments too. I did end up breaking up with her. With that being said, this is probably going to be a longer post. So if that's all the update you want, then you can stop reading here. After I made this initial post, I read every comment as they came in. Eventually, I ended up reading her my original post in full, and all of your replies. This was, of course, an issue for her. First it was, why would you do that? Why would you post our personal business online? Then it turned into, who cares what they think? They're just random people on the internet. We argued every day for about a week. I'll be honest, none of the advice really mattered. I didn't follow it. I love her after all, and I believed we could work it out. We talked a lot too. I genuinely believe she had no feelings for Jeff whatsoever. I also believed her when she told me that she told him that they would never be more than friends. Whether I was being gullible or not, the main issue now was with the double standard of her having a close guy friend when women aren't even allowed to look at me without it being a topic of argument later. So I did what I have done the entire relationship. I compromised my feelings and moved on, with the understanding that I would no longer be tolerating any accusations about me being unfaithful or my feelings of love/attraction towards other women. At that point we were talking about the argument instead of actually arguing, and we got on the topic of Jess again. My secret relationship and my love for her. I told her that I wasn't going to put up with it anymore. The subject then got changed to a girl I currently work with, Tiff. Tiff has been a subject of many fights between my girlfriend and I. I'm obviously in love with her because I tell my girlfriend that I can't stand her. I reassure her again and tell her that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I am then told that I'm being dismissive of her feelings. I tell her, I told you that I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. If you can't drop it, then I don't want to talk to you anymore tonight, and I hung up on her. The next day I'm at work, and I texted her asking if she was still in a mood, and she says no. Then she starts texting me huge paragraphs saying it's okay if you do like Tiff. If you can just be honest with me, we can work past it together. At this point, I'm starting to get frustrated, and I get upset. I was literally begging her to drop it. I finally just said, this is the last time I'm going to tell you, I do not have feelings for Tiff. Please, stop. I don't want to talk to you if this is all we're going to talk about. She then has the audacity to say, I think you do. I just don't think you know you do. You're too young to know how you feel, and you probably just don't realize how you really feel. This was my breaking point. As I sat there, staring at my phone, a singular comment from my last post just popped into my head. Imagine how much your mental health will improve once you dump her. And I finally just texted her that this isn't working out and that I'm breaking up with her. Like I had anticipated, she did not take it well. I've tried to break up with my girlfriend in the past. When we first started dating, she showed up to my home and threatened to kill herself if I left her. Call me stupid, but that worked on me. She knows that I have attempted before. She knows that I lost my best friend ever to suicide, and I told her if she ever threatened me with that again, I'd have her committed. She starts freaking out, calling me 10 times, while I am at work. Blowing up my phone, saying that she is in physical pain because I broke up with her. She can't breathe. Her chest hurts. I stick to my guns and just say, if that's really how you're feeling, I can call an ambulance for you. I keep telling her that I'm breaking up with her. I don't hear from her again for a few hours. She calls me on my way home from work, asking why I haven't texted or called her. She was so upset that she fell and hurt herself. I just keep telling her I can call an ambulance for you if you'd like. Eventually I say she's only embarrassing herself by making these threats, and if she doesn't stop, I'll call the police and have them commit her. Then she starts telling me that I don't care about her. I don't love her. The whole 9 yards. I just keep saying I love you so much, and this breaks my heart, but my mental health is suffering because of the way you treat me. Finally she just tells me that I can't break up with her. I don't have a good reason to, and I say I'm a grown adult in the United States of America. I can break up with you because the sky is blue if I so desire. You're probably wondering why I haven't just blocked her at this point, and it's because I was genuinely terrified that she would show up to my job and make a scene, or show up at my house. Which leads me to the next part of the story. She keeps asking me how long I'm going to be mad at her, and being in denial about the fact that we've broken up. The next morning, I woke up really early to take my roommate to work. I changed my relationship status on Facebook to single and changed my profile picture. On my way home, she calls me again. Where are you? Why aren't you home? I freaked out, screaming at her on the phone, you better not be inside my house, leave my house, you lunatic, stuff like that. I even threatened to call the police on her and get a restraining order. She calls my bluff. I pulled into a parking lot where I can see her car in front of my house. She was never in my house, just in the parking lot. I texted her to leave and keep telling her I'll call the cops. She stops answering. I didn't want to call the police, mainly because I've often seen them weaponized by the woman in my life, which is another reason I didn't want to confront her. So I called her dad instead. I told him the situation, and it turns out he followed her to my house. They lived together, to get her to leave. I later find out that Jeff did call her the day we broke up. He was happy that her relationship with me was over. She cursed him out, and blocked his number. I just keep telling her that the fact that it even came to this, just proves that she doesn't respect me. The next few weeks have been her calling and texting me to work things out. Multiple paragraph apologies. Promises of change. Her family started out as understanding and supportive of me, but as of lately have just been randomly calling me behind her back to ask how long is this going to go on because she is incredibly depressed, despite the fact I've made it clear that as of right now, I have no intention of taking her back. After one phone call from her stepdad, where he started to raise his voice, I just hung up and blocked her whole family. I just keep telling her the same thing. I have no intention of getting back together with you. Maybe in the future, after you work on yourself, we can talk about it. I haven't blocked her, because I do care about her. I want her in my life, just not in a romantic sense. I tell her that if she can't handle just being my friend, that I will have to stop talking to her altogether. And that just because I am her friend, I don't want her to think that means we are getting back together. Last time I spoke to her, a few days ago, it seems that she's finally understanding the gravity of the situation. She is taking accountability and has already met with a therapist. We've been broken up for about a month and a half. I do feel a lot better mentally. I feel kind of free. I don't have to justify anything to anybody. I also feel alone and a bit depressed at times. I feel stupid for letting someone emotionally bully me into getting rid of all my close friends. It's a mixed bag, but I'm taking this time to work on myself. Update 2. It's been about 6 months since my last update. A lot has happened, so I thought I should share where things stand now. First off, my ex continued therapy for about 2 months after we broke up. Initially, she was genuinely working on herself, or at least that's what she told me during our occasional texts. We'd scaled back to talking maybe once a week, mostly just checking in. I was still firm about us just being friends, and she seemed to be respecting that boundary. Around month 3 post-breakup, I started hanging out with some old friends I'd lost touch with during the relationship. One of them was a woman I knew from college, Allie. We were just grabbing coffee and catching up, completely platonic. Somehow my ex found out, probably through mutual acquaintances, and absolutely lost it. The barrage of texts was immediate. I knew you were just waiting to replace me. Who is she? How long have you been seeing her behind my back? I reminded her that we weren't together anymore and that who I spent time with wasn't her business. This set off a whole new cycle of her showing up at my apartment unannounced, leaving tearful voicemails, and even contacting my roommate when I wouldn't answer. I finally had to tell her directly that if she couldn't respect my boundaries, I would have to cut contact completely. That seemed to work for about 2 weeks. Then I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Jeff. Apparently, my ex had reached back out to him after our argument about Allie. According to him, she'd been telling him all about our toxic relationship and how I was controlling and abusive. He actually apologized, saying he realized she was just using him to make me jealous, and that from everything she'd told him about our fights, he could see she was the problem. I thanked him for the heads up but told him I didn't want to be involved in whatever game she was playing. I blocked his number too. Things were quiet for about a month. I was starting to feel like myself again. I even went on a couple of actual dates, nothing serious, just putting myself back out there. Then my ex's stepsister reached out. Apparently, my ex had been telling her family that we were working things out and that I was practically begging to get back together. Her stepsister didn't believe it and wanted to check with me directly. I was floored. Not only was my ex lying to her family, but she'd apparently created this entire alternate reality, where I was the one desperate to reconcile. I set the record straight with her stepsister, who was actually really understanding and apologized for the intrusion. 2 days later, I get a call from my ex, absolutely hysterical. She's screaming about how I've turned her family against her and ruined her life. I try to calmly explain that I only told the truth when directly asked, but she's beyond reasoning with. She hangs up mid-rant. The next morning, I wake up to about 30 missed calls and a string of increasingly concerning texts. The last one just says I can't do this anymore. Remembering her previous suicide threats, I immediately call her dad. He thanks me and says he'll check on her. I find out later she wasn't actually suicidal, it was another manipulation tactic. Her dad was finally seeing the pattern too, and insisted she increase her therapy sessions. It's been 2 months since then. I've completely blocked her on everything. Through mutual friends, I've heard she's dating someone new already. Part of me feels bad for the guy, but mostly I'm just relieved it's not my problem anymore. As for me, I'm slowly rebuilding my social circle. I've reconnected with Jess, yes, that Jess, and apologized for how I let my ex drive a wedge between us. Turns out she never held it against me, she'd seen it happening with other friends who got into controlling relationships. We're not as close as we once were, but it's nice having her back in my life. I'm also dating someone casually. We're taking it extremely slow, and I've been upfront about my past relationship trauma. She's been incredibly patient and understanding. The best part? When I mention female friends or coworkers, there's no interrogation, no accusations, just normal conversation. Looking back, I can't believe I let things get so bad or stayed so long. The constant accusations, the isolation from friends, the double standards, it was textbook emotional abuse, and I just couldn't see it clearly until I was out. If there's anything I've learned from all this, it's that when someone shows you who they are through their behavior, believe them. Words and promises mean nothing without consistent actions to back them up. And most importantly, nobody who truly loves you will try to control who you're allowed to be friends with. My mental health really has improved dramatically since the breakup. That random Reddit commenter was absolutely right. Update 3. It's been almost a year since my last update, and I honestly thought I was done with this whole saga. I was wrong. Life had been going pretty well. The woman I mentioned in my last update, I'll call her Mia, and I dated for about 4 months before mutually deciding we worked better as friends. It was refreshing to have a mature, drama-free breakup where we actually meant it when we said let's stay friends. We still grab lunch occasionally, and there's zero weirdness between us. Work has been good too. I got promoted to shift supervisor, which came with a decent pay bump. I've been using the extra money to save for my own place. Living with roommates has been fine, but at 29, I'm ready for my own space. As for my ex, I hadn't heard anything directly from her in months. Through mutual acquaintances, I knew she and that new guy had broken up after just a few weeks, shocker, and she'd cycled through a couple more relationships since then. None of it was my business or problem anymore, and I was genuinely happy keeping it that way. Then about 2 months ago, I'm at this bar with some coworkers celebrating a birthday. I step outside to take a call from my sister, and who do I see smoking by the entrance? Jeff. Freaking Jeff. We make eye contact, and I'm already planning my escape route when he waves me over. Against my better judgment, I go talk to him. Turns out, he wanted to apologize properly for his role in everything. He admitted he knew my ex had a boyfriend the whole time they were friends but pursued her anyway. He said after seeing how she treated her next couple of boyfriends, apparently they all worked at the same hotel chain, he realized there was a pattern and felt guilty about how he'd contributed to our breakup. I told him I appreciated the apology but that I'd moved on and didn't really want to rehash the past. We left it at that, and I went back inside thinking that would be the end of it. A week later, I get a text from an unknown number. It's my ex's current boyfriend. Apparently, Jeff had told him about our conversation, which led this guy to do some digging into my ex's phone while she was sleeping. Red flag city, I know, but not my circus, not my monkeys. He found a folder of screenshots of all my social media posts, dating back to right after our breakup. Pictures of me with friends, with Mia, even with my family at Christmas. All with her own little comments attached about how I was flaunting my new relationships to hurt her. This guy is freaking out because he's discovering just how obsessed she still is with me, and he's asking if the things she's told him about me are true. According to her, I was physically abusive, cheated constantly, and abandoned her when she was suicidal. I set the record straight without going into too much detail, and wished him luck. 3 days later, my doorbell rings at 11 p.m. It's my ex, completely drunk, demanding to know why I'm poisoning everyone against her. My roommate, bless him, steps between us and tells her he's calling the police if she doesn't leave immediately. She starts crying, saying she just wants to talk, but eventually leaves when my roommate actually dials 911. The next morning, I wake up to a novel-length email from her. The gist is that she's been in intensive therapy for the past 6 months and has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Her therapist apparently suggested reaching out to people she's hurt to make amends as part of her treatment. She apologizes for everything, the jealousy, the control, the post-breakup harassment, all of it. She asks if we can meet in person so she can properly apologize. I sit on this for a few days. Part of me wants to just ignore it and move on with my life. Another part feels like maybe this would give me closure. I talk it over with friends and family, and eventually decide to meet her, but only in a public place, during the day, and after making it crystal clear this is not a reconciliation. We meet at a coffee shop downtown. She looks better, more put together than the last time I saw her. She's sober, articulate, and seems genuinely remorseful. She walks me through her diagnosis, her treatment plan, and how she's learning to manage her symptoms. She acknowledges all the ways she hurt me and takes full responsibility without making excuses. It's actually the most self-aware I've ever seen her. Then comes the bombshell. She's pregnant. 4 months along. The father is the latest boyfriend, the one who texted me, but they've broken up because of his trust issues. Can't imagine why. She says she's not telling me this to get me back or ask for help, she just wanted me to hear it from her rather than through the grapevine. I congratulate her and wish her well with the pregnancy. She thanks me for meeting her and promises she'll respect my boundaries going forward. We part ways amicably, and I feel relieved? Like maybe this really is the end of the whole mess. 2 weeks of blessed silence follow. Then yesterday, I get a text from her ex, the baby's father. Apparently, she told him I offered to help raise the baby since he was abandoning his responsibilities. When he questioned this, she showed him edited screenshots of text conversations with me that never happened. I'm beyond done. I've blocked her on every possible platform, changed my phone number, and am seriously considering a restraining order. I've explained the situation to my boss in case she shows up at work. I've also warned my roommates and given them her picture so they know not to let her in under any circumstances. Looking back at my original post from nearly 2 years ago, I can't believe I was asking for advice on how to make my girlfriend see her hypocrisy about male friends. The problem was never about Jeff or Jess or anyone else, it was about being with someone who viewed relationships as a way to control others rather than support them. So that's where I stand now. Still single, but in a healthy way. Working on myself and my career. Reconnecting with old friends and making new ones without constantly questioning their intentions or walking on eggshells around them. It's not perfect, but it's peaceful. And after years of chaos, peace feels pretty damn good. Update 4. It's been 2 years since my last update. I wasn't planning on posting again, but some recent events made me think this might provide closure, both for me and anyone who's been following this saga. First, the basics. I'm 31 now, have my own apartment, finally, and was promoted to manager at work. I've been dating someone, let's call her Hannah, for about a year. She's smart, funny, and most importantly, secure in herself and our relationship. No jealousy, no accusations, no drama. It still amazes me how easy a relationship can be when both people are emotionally healthy. After my last update, I did end up getting that restraining order against my ex. The judge granted it after reviewing the mountain of evidence I had, screenshots, the police report from when she showed up at my place, witness statements from my roommates and coworkers she'd harassed. It was set for 1 year, which expired about 10 months ago. I was nervous about it ending, but there hadn't been any contact from her for so long that I decided not to renew it. About 6 months after my last update, I ran into her stepsister at the grocery store. She told me that my ex had the baby, a girl, and had moved back in with her parents. According to her, my ex's dad had basically given her an ultimatum: either get serious help or find somewhere else to live with a baby. Apparently having actual responsibility for another human being was the wake-up call she needed. She started intensive therapy, got on proper medication, and was genuinely working on herself. The stepsister also mentioned that the baby's father was gradually becoming more involved, with supervised visits transitioning to shared custody. I wished them all well and didn't think much more about it. Hannah and I moved in together, we adopted a dog, a goofy lab mix named Charlie, and life moved forward. Then, about a month ago, I got an actual letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text, an old-fashioned letter with a stamp and everything. It was from my ex. The letter wasn't asking for anything or trying to re-establish contact. It was part of her ongoing therapy, specifically, a step in her recovery program where she had to make amends without expectation of forgiveness. She explained that her therapist was holding her accountable for actually following through with the treatment. This time, unlike when she'd used therapy as an excuse to try to see me before. She apologized for specific instances of manipulation and emotional abuse throughout our relationship. She acknowledged lying about the pregnancy. Plot twist, the baby wasn't the ex-boyfriend's, but actually from a brief fling with someone else entirely, and using it as a way to try to get my attention. She took full responsibility for her actions without making excuses, even while explaining that her BPD diagnosis helped her understand why she behaved the way she did. The letter ended by saying she didn't expect or want a response. She just wanted me to know that she recognized the harm she'd caused and was genuinely working to make sure she never treated anyone that way again. I showed the letter to Hannah, who said it seemed like a genuine attempt at amends. We agreed that I wouldn't respond, not out of spite, but because clear boundaries seemed healthiest for everyone involved. 2 weeks later, I was at a coffee shop near my old apartment when I saw her. She was with a little girl who looked about 2 years old, ordering at the counter. I considered leaving before she saw me, but then she turned around and our eyes met. She gave me a small smile and a nod, then turned back to pay for her order. No approach, no dramatic conversation, no scene. Just a simple acknowledgement and then respecting my space. I finished my coffee and left, feeling strangely at peace. Last week, I ran into Jess, yes, the Jess from the original post, at a mutual friend's birthday party. We've occasionally kept in touch over the past few years, but this was the first time we'd seen each other in person for a while. She mentioned that she'd also received a letter from my ex, apologizing for the accusations and jealousy. We laughed about how bizarre the whole situation was, and she told me she was glad I'd finally found someone who treats me well. You know, she said, I always thought you put up with her behavior because you didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like. But seeing you with Hannah, it's obvious you just needed to be with someone who wasn't constantly trying to control you. That comment has stuck with me. Looking back at who I was 4 years ago when I wrote that first post, I barely recognized that person. I was so beaten down, so used to walking on eggshells, that I actually thought the problem was my girlfriend's hypocrisy, not the fact that she was controlling, manipulative, and emotionally abusive. If there's any lesson in all of this, it's that sometimes people can change, but it's not your job to wait around hoping they will. My ex needed to hit rock bottom and lose everything before she was willing to do the hard work of changing. And I needed to leave to find out what it felt like to be in a relationship based on trust rather than fear. For anyone reading this who recognizes their own relationship in my original post, it can get better, but probably not with the person who's making you feel this way. The peace and security I have now was worth every difficult moment of leaving. Charlie is snoring at my feet as I write this, Hannah is making dinner in the kitchen, and for the first time in a long time, I'm not anxiously waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's what healing looks like, I guess. This will definitely be my final update. Thanks for coming along on this journey with me.